We finally have the first teaser for Avengers Doomsday, and of course, in classic Marvel fashion, it's nothing like we imagined. But the most impressive part isn't even what they show, it's what this teaser quietly reveals. In a totally unexpected presentation in Italy, yes, Italy, not Comic-Con, not D23, not SDCC, Disney talked about its upcoming releases, including Avengers Doomsday. And it's been kind of hilarious watching how all the real leaks and previews keep coming from these random industry events, not the big fan conventions. Meanwhile, CCXP in Brazil is about to start. So, of course, everyone's wondering, are we getting more Doomsday content there too? A trailer? A sizzle reel? Or just another exclusive only for the room that leaks in 12 minutes via potato-quality phone video? What we know with a bit more confidence is this. The first full teaser trailer is supposed to be attached to Avatar: Fire and Ashes, which releases on December 18th. That's close. Very close. The kind of close where Marvel fans stop sleeping properly and start obsessively refreshing Twitter every day. But this Italian presentation already gave us a lot to chew on. This preview basically reinforces the cast we already saw in the infamous Chairs livestream, the event where they revealed the actors just by showing their names on chairs like some multiversal musical chairs game. However, there's a twist. This new piece doesn't just say who's in the movie, it shows the teams, how the characters are grouped, who stands with who. And that, for the story, is huge. First, they introduced the directors, the Russo brothers. No surprise there. And then Robert Downey Jr. But here's the key detail. He is explicitly labeled as Victor Von Doom. Not Tony Stark variant, not Iron Man of Universe 8-4 anything. Victor Von Doom. A lot of us were worried Marvel might get lazy and say Doom's just another Tony variant in armor, in a kind of what if Iron Man but evil and green direction. The name Victor Von Doom shuts that down. It confirms he's not some Tony Stark copy with a different paint job. He is the Doom from the comics. Of course, there's still the little issue that he looks like the Tony Stark of the main universe. That's something Marvel can't just pretend we won't notice. That similarity needs an in-universe explanation, and the movie clearly owes us one. I've already talked on the channel about how Doom's motivation, according to several rumors, is directly tied to what happened in Avengers Endgame. More specifically to what Steve Rogers did at the end of that movie. The idea is that Doomsday is a direct sequel to Endgame, not just spiritually, but in terms of cause and effect. So Doom looking like Stark is probably not a coincidence. It likely ties into Iron Man, his sacrifice, and the timeline mess caused by the time travel and Steve's decision to stay in the past. Maybe Doom has a grudge. Maybe he blames the Avengers for some multiverse-level disaster. Maybe he's using Tony's face deliberately to make a point. Marvel has a lot of ways to play that. Honestly, the simplest explanation they could give is magic. Doom is one of the few Marvel villains who can justify literally anything with sorcery plus insane intellect. If he wants to cast a spell so he looks like Tony Stark to mess with everyone's head, easy. Cast a jutsu, shimmer green for 5 seconds, boom, Tony 2.0. After Doom, they show the Fantastic Four. No surprise there. They're clearly framed as a full, structured team. Then we have the group coming from Wakanda and Talokan. It looks like the Black Panther is present, and we also have Namor, who's now the ruler of Talokan. That suggests Wakanda and Talokan are on very good terms, good enough that when a cosmic-level threat shows up, the two kingdoms move together. No more frenemies, but actual strategic allies. If a threat big enough to require Avengers Doomsday pops up and Wakanda and Talokan show up side by side, you know things are serious. But the really wild part, the bit that blew up the internet and fried a few brain cells, is the new Avengers team. On this new Avengers lineup, front and center, we've got Shang-Chi. Absolutely deserved. He has to be part of the new generation of Avengers. Thor is there too. Paul Rudd's Ant-Man is on the team. Okay, great. The comedy quota is safe. We also see Falcon, Sam Wilson's Avengers-era team, with Danny Ramirez present in the visual lineup. The presentation even used that famous "Tony is staring at you like he knows your secrets" meme face, which is ridiculous and extremely on brand for Marvel marketing at this point. But here comes the real shock. Loki is standing with the Avengers. And this is important. That placement is not random. This wasn't a collage of characters thrown on a slide. They were clearly showing organized teams. If Loki were totally separate from the Avengers in this movie, they could have framed him alone, just like they did with Doom. Instead, he's right there in the middle of the new Avengers lineup. And that suddenly makes a lot of things click. At the end of Captain America: Brave New World, Sam Wilson decides he's going to build a new Avengers team. But we don't actually see that team properly formed on screen. We just get the intention. At the time, I criticized Marvel a bit for that. It felt like, okay, so the team is going to magically assemble off screen and suddenly exist in Doomsday. Now, with Loki on the Avengers lineup, another possibility emerges. Maybe the Falcons team doesn't fully assemble until the events of Doomsday, and Loki is the catalyst. Remember how Loki's show ended? He's at the center of the multiverse, literally holding together all the timelines. He became the spine of the entire multiversal tree. If that Loki is now part of the Avengers squad, it makes perfect sense that he be the one responsible for connecting these heroes, not just figuratively through story, but literally through time and space. Yes, Sam is still the leader of the Avengers team, but Loki might be the one making the calls behind the scenes, putting people in contact with each other, connecting Sam to Shang-Chi, bringing Thor back into play, and so on. Think about Thor for a second. Last we saw him, he was off in space, basically doing the cosmic single dad thing with Gore's daughter. How exactly would he hear about some multiversal crisis on Earth in time to show up and punch Doom in the face? Easy. Loki shows up. We can totally imagine the emotional scene. Thor is dealing with his own life, and suddenly Loki walks in, very alive, very different, and very aware of everything happening across the timelines. That's their reunion moment. Back in Infinity War, Loki promised Thor, "The sun will shine on us again, brother." Now picture Doomsday starting to make good on that line. Loki appearing in front of Thor, saying he's back, explaining the TVA, the loom, the multiverse, all of it. Thor completely confused and emotionally wrecked because he's seen Loki die like 3 times and the guy just refuses to stay dead. And there's a beautiful symmetry here. In the first Avengers, the team united to fight Loki. He was the invader that forced the Avengers to exist. Now, in Doomsday, Loki comes back as a hero, not only to help save the multiverse, but to bring the Avengers together again. From "we have an army" to "we have Loki." There's also that post-credit scene from Thunderbolts, where they mention that Sam Wilson is trying to sue them for the use of the Avengers name, basically saying they can't legally call themselves Avengers. That doesn't mean Sam already had a fully structured team at that point. It might have just been him and a couple of people like Ant-Man operating under the Avengers banner in a legal sense, while the full roster only really solidifies when Loki steps in during Doomsday. Looking at this team, though, you can't help but notice some missing faces. Where is Steve Rogers? We've had rumor after rumor, source after source saying he'd return for this movie, possibly as Nomad, Steve without the Captain America title. If he does show up, that doesn't mean he's automatically on the main hero lineup. He could appear in a more specific arc as Nomad, helping in one mission but not serving as an official member of the new Avengers. Marvel is absolutely going to keep some secrets. There are cameo-level roles that we're only going to discover in the theater, just like they did with Infinity War and Endgame. White Vision is set to get his own series, but isn't confirmed in Doomsday yet. He could be on a separate path that intersects only later, maybe in Secret Wars. Same thing with Scarlet Witch. There's every chance she doesn't show up in Doomsday at all and only returns in Secret Wars, which would actually make her comeback more impactful. Now, one absence I really felt in this preview was Captain Marvel. Especially considering what happened in the Marvels, Monica Rambeau ends up stranded in the X-Men universe alongside Binary Maria. You'd think Carol would have a very personal reason to get involved in whatever multiversal insanity's brewing. The same logic applies to Loki's TVA story. Since his plot is deeply tied to the Temporal Variance Authority, it's very likely that TVA supporting characters will also appear in Doomsday. We've already had behind-the-scenes photos showing TVA sets during Doomsday filming. Someone from the crew literally posted a picture with TVA visible on set. That's a pretty clear "yes, we are back" there. Sloppy leak, but a leak nonetheless. There are more notable absences. Hulk,
Doctor Strange. These are characters that, according to previous rumors, were meant to be closely involved in Doomsday's story. Either plans changed or they'll have roles that aren't tied directly to this main Avengers team slide. Maybe they operate in different fronts of the conflict. Another team shown in the presentation was the Thunderbolts-esque group. Red Guardian, US Agent, Ghost, Yelena as the new Black Widow, Bucky, etc. Nothing shocking here. That lineup matches what we already know. Then we have the X-Men team slide, again with no real surprises based on previous announcements. Professor X, Mystique, Gambit, Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Beast, and Magneto. What is interesting is what's not there.
Remember that post-credit scene in the Marvels? Monica's stuck in the X-Men universe, and Binary, Maria in that reality, is there with her. Yet, neither of them shows up on this X-Men team lineup from the presentation. That suggests they might appear in the film, but not necessarily as official team members yet, or they're being held back as surprise elements. On top of that, several iconic X-Men are missing. Storm, Jean Grey, Rogue, most likely because their actresses haven't been officially announced yet. Same story for Deadpool and Wolverine. It would be bizarre, in my opinion, for Marvel to bring the X-Men back and not use the two mutants who most recently printed money for them. So what this tells me is, at least for Doomsday, Deadpool and Wolverine probably won't be carrying big arcs through the whole movie. They might show up, they might do something important in a specific sequence, but it doesn't look like they're core members of this main ensemble. And honestly, that makes sense when you remember there's still Secret Wars coming. Think about how Marvel handled Infinity War and Endgame. Infinity War focused on certain groups and left out characters like Hawkeye almost entirely. Endgame brought a lot of those missing characters back into the spotlight, while others took a step back. Doctor Strange is a perfect example. He was essential in Infinity War, then mostly sidelined until the final battle in Endgame. I expect something similar here. Doomsday will spotlight one cluster of heroes, and Secret Wars will shift focus and bring in others, Deadpool, Wolverine, maybe the more cosmic and magical side. And besides the main cast, we still have all the potential special appearances. Blade, who we saw teased in Deadpool and Wolverine, Elektra, multiple Spider-Men. There are persistent rumors that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man will appear in Doomsday, and when you add that to the X-Men and multiverse chaos, you end up with an absurdly packed cast. So my read is this: the characters shown in this Italian presentation are the core carriers of the story, the ones who will really drive the plot. The ones not shown are likely cameos or special appearances with limited screen time, the "oh my god" moments Marvel wants to keep quiet as long as possible. What did you think of the preview Marvel showed at the Disney event? Do you like this new Avengers lineup with Loki at the center, Doom as Victor Von Doom, and all these teams lined up? Or does it feel like too much? If you enjoyed the breakdown, hit subscribe, drop a like to support the channel, and stick around. I'd love to have you with me for the next videos as we follow every new leak, rumor, and official reveal. There are more videos right here on the side that you can watch next. Thanks a lot for your phenomenal company, and I'll see you in the next one.